The Federal Trade Commission and a coalition of attorneys general are suing to block Kroger's $25 billion acquisition of Albertsons. 9 states currently scrutinizing the grocery store's mega merger. Now, among them is Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford, who believes that the deal would create an anti-competitive marketplace. We want to bring him in now. Aaron Ford, he is Nevada's Attorney General. Attorney General, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us here this morning. Clearly, you're looking to challenge this suit. I'm curious as to why you don't support this deal. Why do you see this as a risk here to consumers?
Well, first off, thanks so much for having me on to have this important conversation. But to your question, this is an example of where there was a major confluence between the data that we analyzed, the legal research that we did, and the community input that we received. And it all aligned and led us to the conclusion that opposing this merger was going to be appropriate for a number of reasons. Listening to our constituents, we learned through my Bureau of Consumer Protection, through the dozens of community engagement sessions that we had with Chair Khan, actually from the FTC, actually visiting 3 of those with me, we learned about concerns about higher prices for groceries. Concerns about stores that would be closing and concerns about employee wages and benefits. And again, those were repeated through the data that we did and the legal analysis that we did that determined that, in fact, there were big concerns around competition in those areas. And so that's largely the reason why we've decided to join this bipartisan coalition to oppose this merger.
Attorney General, there has been pushback, obviously, from the 2 parties that are involved, but even more broadly speaking, from industry experts or former FTC members that are saying that, hey, when you look at the competition from Walmart, you look at the competition from Amazon, the fact that you have 2 giants within this space, that if this deal is not approved, it's going to give them even more power. I'm curious how then you see that as being okay, or maybe not having a big of an issue with it when you compare that to what could play out with more pricing competition.
Well, it's the latter part that you just mentioned that gave rise to this lawsuit. I mean, at the end of the day, we think that the competition that currently exists between Kroger and Albertsons in terms of groceries, for example, in terms of the pharmacy services, for example, and in terms of the labor market, those far outweigh the countervailing issues that were raised by the parties who are seeking to enter into this merger. We've seen price competition as a good thing as between Kroger and Albertsons. That will go away in a merger. We've seen the promotion of pricing discounts. We've seen product quality competition between these 2 entities. And again, that will all go away, as would the store condition competition and customer service competition. And that's just in the grocery context. We're not even touching on the pharmacy context in the labor market. And so, we see those again as very real issues that we have to stand up against and try to protect our relevant constituencies from.
If this deal was to go through, is it clear from your assessment what type of food desert situation this would also add onto or layer onto, not just within Nevada, but within a lot of regions within the country?
Well, let me actually back up just for a second and want to, suggest that you two, when you come to our state, I don't want you to get price, upcharged. You have to say Nevada. Our state is Nevada.
Nevada. Look, I made that.
If you get upcharged, you can't call me. That's not price gouging.
I thought about that right after I said it too.
Look, last time I was in Las Vegas, they let it slide because there's a lot of other things they let slide in Las Vegas.
My apologies. But to your point, that's a very great question, and that's a very real issue. Food deserts are already prevalent in our state here. And in fact, I went out to a rural area called Pahrump and was advised, and I'm glad we went out there and talked to the constituents there because they reminded us that they're rural, but we have Frontier Nevada as well that drives to rural areas 100 miles every month or so to do their shopping. And if one of those stores is affected, then those frontier areas are likewise affected. And so certainly food deserts is a concern that also piqued its head and piqued my interest and supported my decision here to join this litigation.
I'm curious, Attorney General, beyond, and you mentioned the conversations that you're having with Nevadans within your state. What are you hearing just in terms of how much pressure they are still under, given the fact that inflation remains well above that 2% target that we have for the Fed? And how are they at all optimistic about some of the progress that has been made in the Fed's fight against inflation?
Well, I think I have 2 answers to that. The first, and I'm going to take the latter one first. I mean, they are happy, obviously, that we're seeing some fluctuations, and in some areas, a decrease in pricing that makes it more affordable for some homes. But as a general matter, people are quite disturbed with the pricing of groceries. right? And again, that speaks specifically and directly to the competition that Kroger and Albertsons currently have. And if they merge, the concern is that those prices will continue to go up. And I have heard from so many constituents. We met with, again, in person, at least a dozen meetings, but we had over 1,000 online responses to our survey. Which obviously are confidential, but the crux of those were exactly the same. People were concerned about the pricing of groceries and overwhelmingly opposed to what's being proposed here.
What was the largest finding from that survey? You mentioned it's confidential, but I wonder if there's one thing that could really steer the decision making, both from the FTC as well as from the team of attorney generals that have essentially come together to really spotlight this deal and at least give some direct feedback that results in taking a second look at this tie-up.
Yeah, listen, I think it's fair to say that the concerns we received in those surveys echoed what we had already heard in the open sessions and what is already detailed in our redacted complaint. Concerns about the higher prices for groceries, concerns about stores that would close, labor concerns about wages and benefits. Some of these places have pharmacies in them, and the problem that could be caused if these stores merge and certain opportunities to get prescriptions refilled would go away. Some of them even have gas stations at them. And so we heard a few concerns about what would happen in that regard. And so those were, again, concerns that were echoed in other aspects of our investigation. And that's, again, that gives us great concern.